Hi, everyone. We're really excited to be here at Stanford for the Machines Reading Maps Summit. I feel like maybe if I go like this, I can stand and actually see people in the room a little bit better. So I'm Katie McDonough. I'm a historian based at the Alan Turing Institute in Lancaster University, and I'm here with the whole extended team from Machines Reading Maps and the David Rumsey collection collaboration. This morning, this session is dedicated to a demo of the results of this collaboration and really to walk people through the different kinds of tools, a little bit of the history of the project, and get a sense of all the work that we've been up to over the last year together. I'm going to hand it over quickly to David Rumsey, who's going to actually chair this session. But as we get started here, it's important for us to recognize that historical mapping practices in the Bay Area, here at Stanford, and California, and of course around the world, have erased, misrepresented, and allowed non-native peoples to profit from and take ownership of land. So in creating data from digitized maps that were often printed to support, document, or represent the outcomes of destructive acts, we're responsible for thinking carefully about how we reuse, enrich, and engage with this content. So in this ongoing research and community engagement project, we acknowledge these harms and seek to understand the limits and the opportunities for examining maps to study historical human experiences. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David.
Thank you, Katie. It's great to be here today and to go over this wonderful work that has proceeded for the last year. For us as a team, it's great to all be here together, particularly our friends from Minnesota who just came. And so we're very excited to share this information with you, particularly focusing on the potential for reuse of this, not just in the collections that we've been working with, but other collections and other ideas of how to use the whole database. So we're going to have three speakers on this panel today, and I'll introduce the first one, who is Valeria Vitale, who is going to show you some of the work that we've done. Valeria is a lecturer in digital humanities at the University of Sheffield. She's a member of the British School of Rome's Faculty of Archaeology, History and Letters, and one of the coordinators of the Pelagios project. She works to develop historical gazetteers. That's a particular passion of hers, and most notably the historical gazetteer of Libya. She joined the Machines Reading Maps team at the Turing Institute and before being appointed to Sheffield. So Valeria, over to you.
Great. Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone. It is really a pleasure and honor to be here, and I am absolutely delighted to show you some of the new features in the David Rumsey collection and some of the new ways in which we can now search and interrogate the collection. Okay, so I'm also, for the purpose of this demo, taking this a little bit in the corner. Okay. We're ready to go now. So let's start from something that we know, which is how search works now in the Rumsey collection. So we type a place name here and we hit search. And if we are looking for a fairly, major port in the Mediterranean, like the city of Naples in this example, we get quite a lot of results. We have 738 results. That means that in each of these documents, the word Naples appears somewhere in the metadata. It could be a map of Naples, it could be a map printed in Naples, it could be a map that has the word Naples featuring in its description. But let's say that we are interested in, a place that may be a little less popular in cartography or just in the Rumsey collection, like another port in the Mediterranean, like the city of Syracuse. Now, this search is less rewarding. We have like 5 results, and we may want more. But the reason we are here today is that we have another way of searching the maps. we can now find all the times that the word you're interested in our case, the name Siracusa, appears on the map, on the text that has been printed on the maps. And the text on maps that we have collected through the map curator pipeline has now has created a corpus that we can search. We call that text on maps. And how do we search for our word in text on maps? It's easy. We go here and we change the mode of search. And we select text on maps instead. And now that we have selected this different kind of search, what's going to happen is that in front of our eyes is going to start taking shape this beautiful data visualization that the Luna team created that is showing us all the times that the algorithm has identified a word on the group of almost 57,000 georeference maps in the Rumsey collection that has been associated with the word Siracusa. Now, while this, this Mason review builds up in front of our eyes, be careful, it is extremely addictive. If we hover on any of the bricks that make up the masonry view, what we see is the preview of the original image with a yellow pin that tells us in the context of the map where the annotation has been found. Okay. So if I wanted to look for occurrences of the city Siracusa, I wanted to look for representations of this city, I have now quite a few more results than before. We have, 500. So that has made my pool of results much more relevant, much more rewarding for me as a researcher. But also, if I am interested, for example, in the place names, in the history of how they evolved, I may notice that this search, thanks to a level of fuzziness that is embedded in the search, and David Wong will say more about it in a moment, I also find results that are not perfect matches. And sometimes that is, noise, but most of times that is actually could be very important clues about variant spelling of the place name, like, for example, Siracusa with a Y, or there are, Siracusa with a final AE, and so on. And I love this because it's almost as if the visualization has become a maps in itself that is suggesting me where to search next. Maybe I can start searching for Siracusa with a Y and find even more results that will make my search even more useful and rewarding. So far, we have seen how exciting can be to find a lot of results. But what if we actually want to be a little bit more precise? And we actually want to narrow it down, what we look for. Let's go back to our example of the city of Naples. Sorry, I am very much Mediterranean focused on text on maps. And let's see what we get. We have seen already that we had a lot of results in the traditional metadata search, but now we're going to get, even more, and we are well over 3,000. By default, we see results in the masonry view, but there is another view that is available, which is the grid view, and you can switch to it just by clicking on this. And what you get if you click on the grid view is a sort of stream of all the previews of the maps. And you will also see, as soon as it loads, again, the yellow pins that tell us where the annotation of the word that we looked for has been found. You may notice that we have a little fewer results here, and that's because some maps feature the place name or the word more than once. And quite nicely, if we hover on the preview, we see snippets of the actual annotation. And this view is very helpful as well, because it tells me much more about the context of what I have found. And it tells me what kind of map it is, roughly the time, the scale, and also where in the world is the place that I found. Because of course, there are places that share the names. And there are actually quite a few Naples in the world. and several are indeed in the US. So let's say that, for example, I only want to see the city of Naples, the mentions of Naples in maps of the United States. So in other words, I want to combine the benefit of having a lot of results using the text on map search, but I also want to use the precision that is, allowed by searching the catalog metadata. How do I do that? I use our secret weapon, which is the advanced search. So if I select the advanced search, what I can do very briefly, we talk more about the advanced search in the workshop in the afternoon. I can select any of the fields in the metadata catalog manually. So if I want to select by country, I will select country. And I can input manually the value that I want to search for, in our case, the United States. And the word that I want to look for is Naples. And what I get with this search are exactly only the maps of the United States that show the word Naples. Now, while we wait for this to load and show to us, okay, fantastic. So one thing that I find one of the many things that I find really interesting about this new way of searching the maps is that we don't have to limit ourselves to place names. There are, a lot of words on maps, and they have a huge informative value. And for example, now that we have this new kind of corpus that is both textual and spatial, we can, for example, search for types of things, for categories of things, for all those unnamed entities that appear on the map and are hugely important to historians and other humanities researchers. So for example, I could search for, I can use this. Okay. We could search, for example, if we were interested in the history of industrialization. Let's say we want to search maps where the word factory appears, but we want to look only to maps of, I don't know, Canada. So let's say country, Canada. And we don't have to limit ourselves to only one filter. We can add as many filters as we like. For example, we can add a date range and say that we only want to see the maps of Canada in the period, I'm going random here, from 800 to 850, and the word that we're looking for is factory. And I need to write that correctly though. And these are the results that we will see. And while these are coming in, one last thing that I wanted to add, and these are all the factories that appear in Canada in that period of time. And of course, we can search all sorts of things we're interested in. One last thing that I would like to add is that through these new tools, it is much easier to look at maps as historical documents bearing text. And it becomes much easier, let's say, to expose and discuss the underlying narratives that appear on those maps. And we know that maps very often, as Katie was saying, has been used as tools of oppression, domination, colonial power. And a lot of those narratives are carried by words. And with these tools, it becomes much easier to analyze these narratives more systematically and more critically. And also to give maybe communities, those communities that have been erased, misrepresented, the opportunity to counter those narratives. And this is, at the same time, a fantastic opportunity, I think, for many reasons, of using, for example, problematic words, of using difficult words that have been applied to label cultures and population. We can use those as ways to interrogate the maps and see and investigate, okay, what were the cartographers hiding? What were the cartographers misrepresenting? What were they not telling? But at the same time, it is a challenge that we need to address because we still lack the ethical guidelines to deal with cultural data that are created automatically by machines. And we would be absolutely enthusiastic if we could find partners that are interested in exploring this new territory with us. And now I'll hand it to David.
Yeah, I'll just introduce David and David. Thank you, Valeria. We're so fortunate to have you on the team with your love of toponyms and the things that you bring out. What's so interesting about building these tools from all of us on the team is that it's so exciting for us now to see these uses, which we couldn't dream of. And I think part of what will be great about this conference is we'll see even more uses.